Yeah, yeah.
We are the epitome of Black female love.
It's
Yeah.
easy for us as Black women to hold up the banner and the cause for everyone else. But again, who holds up the banner and the cause for us? What role does the church play in all of this stuff?
Is that we as a Black church are perpetuating the same behavior as a patriarchal evangelicals have been
That's
doing.
right. And guess
Church. But it's the sisters in the congregation.
But it's a lot of times it is the Black women who bring us down more, or push or try to silence our voices more in the Black church.
Hold on. Hello, everybody.
Hello, how are you, my sister?
What's going on, ladies? Right, you're muted.
Okay, I'm not muted now.
How are you, Dr. Wright?
Wonderful. The weather here is absolutely beautiful.
Really?
Yes, I have my windows open. I feel like doing some spring cleaning. I got the windows open and the breeze is blowing through. However, they did say it's a tornado lurking somewhere.
Yeah, that's what we're hearing here in Texas. There's overcast, and there is some, what do you call them, tornado, whatever. So always, whatever alerts, whatever they're calling them. But okay, I'm not even trying to hear that right now. But after hearing all the things that happened to Little Rock, we should be well prepared for it, right? I did have some family members affected or impacted by the Little Rock tornadoes. It went through central Arkansas, and going through Friday, it was going through Chicago, Memphis, Nashville. I mean, I was like, come on. Well, hello there, Litany, Sharon, Karen, and Cindy. It's very good to see you. Glad you're in the room. It was a sight to see, but one of the things that my family members shared was that the churches are coming together in Little Rock. And they're bringing food, and they're bringing resources, and they're helping with what they need, and that is such a blessing to hear, right? So, go ahead.
I apologize. I don't mean to cut you off, but I'm gonna say that it's one thing about the American people. I just have to say, when calamity strikes, we seem to come together real well, and to support and to help. And then it's like when everything don't get me started back when the Twin Towers fell. Everybody was warm and fuzzy, kumbaya.
Yeah. Wow.
And once they figured that out, then it's like they go back to the same old disastrous mess, and it makes no sense. But we do well in supporting people in times of catastrophe, and I applaud the American people for that.
What you used disastrous mess. What a play on words, right? We come together for a disaster, but then after the disaster is over, we go to a disastrous mess. My goodness, what a dichotomy in that regard. That was pretty cool. Okay, Wallace, I want to charge you up with this. Have you watched? Hey, Dr. Burns, how you doing? Okay.
Hello, my sisters.
let me go ahead and charge you up. So, have you been watching the news lately?
Unfortunately,
you notice I didn't charge Burns up. Let me charge you up first.
Unfortunately, wasn't nothing else on to watch.
Exactly.
So, yes. Well, before I get into that hot mess, I want to just say that I was a part of a Unlocking the Voices for ending mass incarceration, and on last Friday, and I truly enjoyed the training session. what I'm happy about is that people are coming together on, and it's not a hot mess, but mass incarceration, and our guests probably can share a lot more about it. Mass incarceration is a hot mess as well.
Yeah.
But Mr. Orange,
Lock him up! Lock him up!
Wallace, you see why I wasn't going to charge her first? Do you see why now?
Okay. Lock him up!
Wallace, right?
Okay, all I had to do was say, okay. So Mr. Orange has been indicted on 34 felony charges. Now, my concern is
lock him up.
See,
lock him up.
He may not get locked up. He may not get locked up in New York. He gonna get locked up in Georgia. But they got on him in New York. In most cases, might have been misdemeanors, but somebody is doing some lying, so they got some federal charges against him instead of misdemeanors. Felony charges, and I should say, instead of misdemeanors,
to say the least.
So my hope is he needs to know what it feels like to wear orange in Georgia. I mean, he can have orange hair, but he needs to know what it feels like to wear orange. He got a little taste of what black folk go through today.
No, he did. 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 They did not handcuff him. They did not mugshot him. They did not fingerprint him. So no, he did.
Charge her first.
No, he did. No, he did.
However, the reason I say that is because he had to sit and not open his mouth, which in court, which was a bit difficult for him. Black folks' voices have been silenced forever.
Okay,
that's where I'm coming from. Now, whether he got what the Justice Department does to us, what law enforcement does to us, I would say no. But he was some kind of embarrassed today when he couldn't say a mumbling word. Hallelujah! And it's hallelujah.
So let me jump in. I have a lot. Thank you, Dr. Bright. Thank y'all. I got a lot. Let me jump in.
So Burns, you've been sitting on this too long. So you gotta unleash the floor.
Let me jump in. Okay, but before I jump in, oh my goodness, viewing audience, those of you who found us, I want to say thank you. We are not really certain what has been going on with our Timely Wisdom Facebook page, but they sought it to us in this last week. Over the last 6 to 8 weeks, some of our videos have been getting flagged and some other things. I know we've been doing a lot of talking about legal issues lately, on the condition of Black and Brown communities. So we really need your help today in helping the audience find us on today, because we want to talk about law and order. So please, whatever you can do, tag somebody, share this on their page, share it with them, call them up. Well, don't call because then you'll miss the broadcast. But help people find us on today. Help them find us. I'm not gonna say it's a conspiracy, but I feel like it's a conspiracy. But when you have 4 Black women who enjoy each other's company, and we don't mind talking about real issues. So please help people find us. Before we get to Mr. Orange, because my whole day got messed up today. Everything I had planned, I had to clear my schedule so I didn't miss anything on the TV. But I gotta get to that. I know we got to our guests on the back. But y'all, now one thing I'm tired of, because we're Black women, but the MVP of the women's Final Four, right? No. Whose whole sense of being got attacked when she simply did back to the white woman what the white woman had done to other, especially African American players throughout the season and in that semifinal game. Y'all, ooh, wait, y'all.
Y'all know I was in the house, right? I was in the house.
Okay. I'm happy. Okay, I'm glad you were there. Okay, I ain't gonna hate. All right, I'm gonna applaud you. All right.
But to take it a step further, then and yes, she is our first lady, had the audacity.
Girl.
The audacity.
Yeah.
Now, if that really happens.
Yeah.
Okay, but
no. As Reese tagged, she said joke, and then she sent a tweet and said, as a matter of fact, Michelle Obama, can we come to y'all house? Will y'all host us?
See what I'm saying?
See, you see that?
Way back to 19,
showing your real colors.
Found out that never in the history of games have they had the loser show up too.
Nope.
And Lady Jill, I respect you, but I don't know where you were going with that.
Yeah. But you all, absolutely. But you all, just the visceral kind of language that was used in women's athletics. And the thing of it is, we know it as a community. We say if you can't eat it, you don't dish it, right? And so you don't.
That's what we say.
What's good?
But I don't have a clue what y'all talking about. But anyway, go ahead.
Okay, but to talk about the fact of sportsmanship, just the language that's used between the two, right? Hood for one, classy for the other. This kind of language, and these are the kind of things that what I still call them dog whistles, right? It's how the language is used, right, to infer particular characteristics or behavior that are often being used to describe people of color. Ooh wee.
I'm about to have it.
So when did this happen, y'all? Help me.
Okay. So this is the championship NCAA women's basketball game.
Okay.
Of course, LSU won, and the MVP did the exact same thing as the losing team star did. This is what she did. She pointed to her finger, meaning that we're going to get the ring and you're not. So the losing team star, which is wonderful.
A woman of color.
No, the losing team is wonderful. Mm-hmm. The winning team is beautiful. Right. Yeah. Okay, we'll tell you that later. Anyway, she did the exact same thing as the opposing team did, but now they have different narratives, which is sad. Which, I mean, it's normal though, right?
For real.
Yeah. I mean, that's the norm, and it shouldn't.
That's for real. That's for real.
Yeah.
I have to go back and see some of that.
if you turn on it unfortunately, and I enjoy watching Stephen A. during the football season for how he hates the Cowboy fans, as he says, but I appreciated him. But the thing of it is that LSU won the national title, and what have they managed to do? They've managed in the midst of this to still keep this white woman in the headline.
Iowa.
When she lost. When she and her, they didn't lose. LSU whipped their tails. All right. Okay. They whipped their tails.
Mop the floor.
Right. But right. And they managed to continue to keep this losing player in the headline when LSU are the winners. And that's that kind of stuff. All right. I know we got our guests backstage, but y'all, I cleared my day today. I got to catch up on work tomorrow because I didn't want to miss them getting out the hotel, getting in the car. I didn't want to miss them getting out at the courthouse. And I sat there while I waited for the court was delayed to see him come out after he had been arrested. Lock him up. Okay. All right. And then I watched him get in that plane and leave like I did when I was happy back in January 2020 when we got to see him fly on out the place. But y'all, woo-wee. Yeah, okay. All right. We got to get backstage. But anyway.
Hollering.
Oh, today has been a good day. Sam Cook said it's been a long time coming, but change gonna come.
Don't be talking about my cousin.
All right, so I share the day is on. Yeah. And that's just don't say Wallace, because that's just one state, as Wallace said. That's just one state. He got another one coming. Our guest on today, we have he's a pastor now, Pastor Nicholas Taylor, but he is a retired sergeant of the Orlando Police Department. He's a native of Tallahassee, Florida, and love this. He accepted Jesus as his Lord and Savior at the age of 13. I do consider him to be a very humble and dedicated servant of God. He's married to his wonderful bride, Regina Siplin Taylor, and he's the father of 5 adult children. He was educated in the Leon public school system, and upon graduation, you'll appreciate this, Wallace, he earned his Bachelor of Science degree from Florida A&M University. Not Bethune. He served.
What's happening? What's going on here?
He served and was honorably discharged as a veteran of the United States Navy. Thank you for your service. He worked as an engineer in the United States Naval Construction Battalion. In 1988, he was hired by the city of Orlando as a police officer, and he served as a detective in the violent crime section and was promoted to the rank of sergeant. After 25 years of service, he was honorably retired. In 2011, rededicated his life to Christ, acknowledged his call to pastor, was licensed to preach, and now presently he's currently the pastor of Freedom Fellowship of Central Florida and also chaplain with the Orlando Police Department. He's a man who loves God, people, and God's word. And then our other guest, we have a double header on today, is the Reverend Dr. Jeremiah John Isaac Hill, Esquire. He has 25 years of ministerial experience from Tennessee, Illinois, Wisconsin, Indiana, Texas, and DC. And he is the managing member of the Jubilee Law Firm, a law firm which merges matters of faith and law with a focus on issues of economic and social justice. He has a Bachelor's of Arts from Lane College, a Juris Doctorate from Loyola University, Chicago School of Law, Master of Education in Cultural and Educational Policy from Loyola, Master of Divinity from United Theological, a Master of Theological Studies with a concentration in Wesleyan Studies, and the Black Church from United Theological Seminary. He's a licensed attorney in Texas, Tennessee, Indiana, and the District of Columbia. Federal practice submissions are based on experience in civil rights nostalgia and include Eastern Wisconsin, which encompasses Milwaukee and the surrounding areas, which is the federal jurisdiction. This is where he was born and raised. Eastern Missouri, which encompasses St. Louis and the surrounding area. And the state of Arkansas, which covers one of the most explosive attempts at desegregation of public education, which is one of his areas of passion and work. And so if we will now, our viewing audience, please welcome our guest, Attorney Jeremiah John Isaac Hill and retired Sergeant Nick Taylor, as we discuss on today, law and order. Law and order.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Good evening.
My student, Jeremiah, a good student.
Yeah.
I need to know, who is this person talking about somebody so fine?
Who is that?
Hopefully a fan.
um, Again, to our viewing audience, before we jump in, please, 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 those of you who found us, help others find us as we are wrestling with our Facebook page and Timely Wisdom, our main page where we broadcast from. Please help others find us, like, tag, and share this on their pages as we have this discussion. Gentlemen, thank you. Retired Sergeant Nick Taylor and Attorney Jeremiah Hill for being with us on this day of law and order. This isn't one of your questions that we have for you on today, but we got to start with current issues on today. The current issue that never in the history of America has a former president been arrested.
Joy. Much joy there.
have been indicted and arrested. As we kind of talk about law and order on today, any general thoughts that either of you might have on this on today?
Well, he's still a criminal defendant. And as a criminal defendant, he has to get a fair trial. There's nobody famous or more famous in the country than Donald Trump. And so I hear a lot of folk talking about, well, they didn't perp walk him. How could he get a fair trial and he would win on appeal? Because you can't find a jury that would convict Donald Trump. Either you're gonna love him or you're gonna hate him. And if you hate him enough, he's gonna say you're prejudiced. And if you love him enough, well, he's just gonna walk, as he invited so many folk who wouldn't show up to protest his arrest.
So Dr. Hill did hear on the there was Joe Mattis on the Urban View. They were having a conversation and they said that he wanted the perp walk, but they refused to give it to him because he wanted that attention. You know, he's an attention seeker. He likes all that. And so his attorneys encouraged him and told him, that he needed to take that walk. And that was one of the reasons why they denied that to him.
If I'm a prosecutor, I don't want him to take that walk. He would have tanked any possible jury that could have been chosen out of all those many millions of New York residents. To have seen him in handcuffs and an orange jumpsuit would have made him presume more guilty than we already think he is.
Well, but he's not going to be able to find. They're going to have to move the venue. Is that not correct? Because are they going to be able to find 12 people who have not done what Burns did today and sit and watch the whole darn?
Okay, I think that I could be a non-biased juror.
Yeah, right.
But overseas,
I can. Okay. If you think that's okay, if you think that, we know better.
I don't even think she thinks that. It just rolled off her tongue.
My.
So let's jump in on today. We are blessed on today. We have someone who has who is what we see been the one who's been responsible for arresting individuals, and one who sits on the side of what we call the balance scales, as he just balanced so well in talking about if the people who've seen him in an orange jumpsuit, and I thought about how will they be able to discern his face from his jumpsuit, but then I digress again. So let's start with you, Retired Sergeant Nick Taylor. Why did you decide to go into law enforcement, and how long did you serve?
Help us, Dr. Nick. I tell you, get us off of what you want to talk about.
Well, it's no real, I guess, great reason I decided to go in. I was coming out of the military and just looking for another job, and they were the first ones that called. But I grew into the position to love it because I got to help people. and I was a part of the first domestic violence task force in Florida, and I really got to help start that new law in Florida and got to help people. So I kind of grew into the love of the career more than thinking that I was going to jump into it and help people out. So within my first 5 years, I was a detective in the violent crime section and a part of that group, the task force. So that's pretty much how I got into it and how I grew to love the profession. And I was a police officer for 25 years, including being a sergeant and a detective.
Wow. He just went to the wrong school. Yeah, if you don't know, Bethune-Cookman is the school in Florida. You know, FAMU perpetrates only because they're a state school, but the maroon and gold is the school in Florida. In case y'all don't know.
Wow, I see you and DeSantis and 45 are good friends. All right. Attorney Hill, tell me, why did you decide to go into law?
Well, I didn't go in thinking that I would practice. I went in thinking that I'd work in policy, and then I graduated and figured I left something undone, and so I went that way. And I came across 2014. We had all these uprisings, uh, police officers killed, and then I witnessed the district attorney uh, in St. Louis wasn't as enthused about getting a conviction as the DAs uh, in New York were, but then they did a maneuver where they argued to protect the police officer, and I realized that we don't have enough of us, and so I pushed myself to go into practicing law and learning how to argue. That woman on the chat who said he's so fine, I'm going to ask her for some more tips on how to be a better arguer.
Those of us that are married caught
She wins every one.
Way to go, Dr. Shazetta Thompson Hill.
We know she better.
Dr. Hill, one of the things that you said in your responding with us with the questions, you talked about as your seminary journey was reaching its end, that George Floyd was murdered while officers focused more on stopping the crowd than their fellow officer from community committed a felony. Say a little bit more about that for you from that legal perspective, and as a Black man from that legal perspective.
So I guess I'll start with the legal perspective first. We talk about 2014, where the DOJ had Eric Holder, and they got mad at Eric Holder for going after some of these high-profile cases, and so they came up with this fast and loose charge against him for selling guns to Mexico, and they got rid of him. And then they brought in Loretta Lynch, who was a lame duck attorney general, because they weren't going to do anything President Obama wanted at that time. And then January 20th, 2017, the Office of the Attorney General, Office of Civil Rights went blank. Their website went down. I don't think anybody caught that at 12 o'clock, January 20th, 2017, the seat of power switch. And at 12:01, the DOJ's Office of Civil Rights went blank. And for 4 years, as we saw all of this, the federal government became disinvolved. And now we have a Black woman, Kristen Clark, the Assistant Attorney General over the Office of Civil Rights, who's working to rebuild this office after it essentially dismantled by Trump's Department of Justice. But as a black man, we all have those stories. It could have been me. We've all had some kind of encounter where, if it weren't but for God's grace, it could have been us. But we have also this dynamic of everyone has a camera, and so I don't think policing has caught up with that just yet. That any given move, any given stop, you have a nation of Black Panthers that would watch and videotape police officers stopping, and so we have this new dynamic in trying to understand how policing will catch up with it.
Wow. Wow. Since you're mentioning with policing, Taylor, I'm going to ask you, I guess, a combination of two questions. While you were working as a police officer, detective, the sergeant in the police department, did you notice any policing of Black and Brown communities that were different than in other communities? And then what are loopholes that law enforcement use to arrest or stack charges on individuals, especially those of Black and Brown community?
Can I answer that about the camera too, though? I think that the cameras coming into effect, but the officers have been used to getting away with stuff so much that they're not really caring about the cameras until recently. So it used to be that you can charge somebody, do whatever you wanted to do, and it was whatever you said. But when I came along, it was the Black community, the Brown community was definitely treated differently, and officers knew that they could get away with certain things in the Black and Brown community that they couldn't get away with the white community. And a big part of the reason is because we don't complain. We don't go and make up a police report. We don't go and make a formal complaint on them. So they can go and do whatever they want to do. And
wait, hold on a second. Say that again.
we don't go and make a formal complaint against the officer. And if we do, we think it's not going to happen. I can give you an example. We had this one officer who he was a decorated officer and he was making arrests left and right, but he was stealing out of the ladies' purses that he was arresting. They go and make a complaint, but they say, "Oh no, it's not him." And so they didn't do anything. Next one go and make a complaint. They say, "Oh no, it's still not him." But when the third one complained, they said, "We have to look into this." Because what it does is when we complain, it may not affect you, but it starts a paper trail. And today's age, right now, they have to look at it. They can't wait till the third or fourth time that somebody complains. They have to look at it now and get rid of that bad seed. So I think, I know the reason that policing is different on different sides of town, basically because we won't go down and make a police complaint on it. People used to come up to me and want to make the complaint, and I would tell them to go to internal affairs to start the paper trail on it, on the officers.
Would there have been any retaliations? Is that, our people have this hermeneutic, as we call it, of suspicion. So they look at that or hear that as suspect. Would they be found to be intimidated because they made a complaint? So what prevents that?
Right now, here in Kansas City, we have a case with a police officer by the name of Roger Glabowski. He was an old school detective, and for years he would go into the hood and he would snatch up these young boys and he would charge them with a crime in order to show that the case was closed. And if there was any kind of hiccup in it or any kind of pushback on it, He pinned down the mamas, he pinned down the sisters, and you can Google it. You can either Google it or look it up on because it's headline news. Because in the last, a young man was just released from being in penitentiary for 40 years, and the whole time he kept voicing his innocence, voicing his innocence. And finally, the mother came forward. She said, and I've had enough too. The mother was being sexually molested through all of this in order to keep this foolishness going. And so the boy was taking the case, trying to keep him off of his mother.
Mm.
And it's some madness, but his name is Roger Gablowski for the Kansas City, Kansas Police Department. You can Google it. It's a very big case and it's ongoing right now.
So,
Yeah.
so the thing is that we still can't stop making the complaint. And I think we still have to back each other on it. The community, the Black community has to come together, and we have to know that this has to stop. And what the process of stopping it right now that we have is that. And we have to back that. And there's going to be stuff like that where there's going to be maybe threats of violence, but we have to come together as a community. The church has to come together as the community and help each
So,
other out.
But yeah, we need something.
so, yeah, right, and Dr. Breff, I don't know if you're about to say something. I guess I have a follow up to that because I see also in the chat it talks about retaliation, and we heard just from Dr. Wright talking about essentially what's happened with the mother of one of the suspects. And so when you talk about the community coming together, and when there is generally a distrust of law enforcement in our communities, and if a complaint is made, and we know that law enforcement, I mean, they stack charges. They've done it for years. So how is there an expectation that the community will come together when they know that if one does, I mean, they find reasons to arrest us. I mean, you can be driving down the street, you could have stopped at the stop sign, right, and turn right, and they would say, that your signal came on too late or you didn't stop. They find ways, and we know that, and understand that there are women in the law enforcement, but the term is the fraternal order brothers, that we know that the brothers, as they say, that you all support each other. So help us kind of navigate.
Well,
Especially in the city or in the locale of Trayvon Martin's case. I'm having difficulty. I hear you, Dr. Taylor, and I respect what you say. It's just hard. It's hard to complain in a place where you have seen injustice and people killed over some tea and Skittles. I'm from Florida, okay? My home is Daytona Beach, so right across the way from you. It's just hard to say, come on and complain when you know you're going to be retaliated against. That's hard.
well, Trayvon wasn't killed by the police, though, but I understand what you're saying. But the process that we have is that, and we also have the vote. We got to get commissioners in place that are going to change the policies in the police department. We got to get out and vote. If the police agency, the police chiefs, or the sheriff's not changing what they need to change, then we got our right to vote. We got to do that. And that's how it's going to change. It's going to change with us complaining. It's going to change with us getting people in the local positions to change the police chiefs, to change the sheriffs, to where training comes in, to where they're not coming in thinking they could just police us in any kind of way. So that's another.
Well, I hear you, Doc. I hear you, Doc. But see, now you talk to me about gerrymandering. How in the world are we going to get anybody that we want or need in a position where every state across the nation have serious gerrymandering where our people aren't going to be. I'm sorry, I don't mean to take up the argument, but that's hard. You're right. Voting, we do need to do. You're exactly right. I agree with you 110%. However, the way it's gerrymandered, our vote don't matter.
But Dr. Wallace, I hear what you're saying, but I think too we have to work hard to where whoever we get in there isn't that one-term person. We get excited about one term and then we don't do the homework no more. We have to keep doing our due diligence to keep that person in, because just like with even the presidents coming in, people are trying to figure out the system. They're trying to get their feet wet. They're trying to figure out how this thing works. Sometimes it takes almost that 4 years to get it all figured out, and then it's time to vote again. And so their voice may not be heard, but we have to be more than a one-term support system. We got
And we have to be people that.
Let me offer this thought. The George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. It didn't pass in the 117th Congress. It won't pass in the 118th Congress, primarily because the politicians won't get along. They don't want to go back to their areas and say that they weren't backing the police. But here's the catch. All of the national organizations of policing have backed and endorsed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. They were involved in the conversations that helped frame and the negotiations of taking some things out, because yes, to get them on board, there had to be some things that were sold out, but they're on board. But the politicians won't sign the bill because they don't want to have it on their record to say they were hard on policing. And so this is how this conversation about voting actually impacts what is done on policing on a federal level. Now, I'm in DC, and DC has passed their own version of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. But since DC is in the state, Congress has to approve DC's version. And because they don't want to come down hard, they are planning now to reject DC's version just because they can. And so it becomes a gateway now that President Biden will have to overrule or veto their proposal not to accept DC's version of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act. And so it is very much political in this environment, even beyond what we see on the surface.
Wow. I think both of you gentlemen, I have so many questions to follow, but Attorney Hill, then let's get to civil liberties, because I hear about voting, but if law enforcement stacks charges, and Taylor, especially from your state, where so that if you have a felony, then you can't vote, and so if charges are stacked and you can't afford the attorney to fight the charges, and so voting doesn't become an option, and so if they use that to keep people from complaining or as a retaliation on officers. And so, Attorney, let me ask you, what are legal approaches a person can take if they believe their civil liberties then have been violated?
Well, I would say, because you all went there already with Officer Nick, Officer Taylor, and talking about the importance of filing the complaint, because it's oftentimes the person's word against the officer's word. And unless the officer has a stained record, the officer's word just is going to carry more weight. And so you have to build this, and a lot of people don't complain because we want the complaint to respond for us. But if we complain, at some point, it's going to come back around. If we complain, somebody else is going to catch, okay, this is the second, third, fourth time this officer has conducted themselves in a way that speaks to their character, that they aren't effectively doing their job. And so you build this record. And so if everybody holds their complaint, you never have the record, because it's not about what happened. And I think that's where a lot of people get caught up. It's not about what happened, because everybody's perception is, okay, they acted harshly. I got pulled over and the officer had his hand on his gun. Well, the officer raised his voice or her voice. They didn't have to do that. The officer drugged me out the car. And so if we don't have this record, it's not about what happened. It's about what we can prove. And then in terms of a legal recourse, how much is your rights worth to you? That is the quantifiable question, because you can't take a person to court without having to label it with money. And I think what we come to a lot of times, I can't use the really words, Dr. Wallace, that I might want to say to somebody to help bring them down to reality, but our rights aren't worth much.
Mm-hmm. But that's where the church comes involved, I believe. If any one individual, usually as an African American, poor African American, you can't afford to get an attorney. However, where does the church help? I mean, we fry chicken dinners and fish fries and all of that for some other reasons. We could also, if we thought about it, be able to raise some funds to get Johnny out of jail or to get Johnny an attorney.
I might raise your question differently. How does the church hurt?
Because we think
because you have to think about this. Where does law enforcement get their funding? There are two sources. They get it from property taxes, which churches pay none, and they get it from citations. And so if we building $1 million cathedrals in these rough black and brown neighborhoods, that is money that they're gonna have to recoup somewhere. And when they go to recoup it, they're recouping it from our hides in the form of tickets, in the form of other kinds of citations and fines and penalties. And so it's not a question of how we help. We have to realize how we're hurting the situation.
Oh, wow.
And until we realize how we're hurting the situation, we aren't in a position to help, because we're going to be pointing the fingers at the officers, not realizing that we're not paying their salaries.
I hear you. I hear you. That cathedrals, I got it.
Whoa! So, oh my goodness, you just made me look at so many of our urban communities in such a different light, where there's a church on every corner, right? There's one street in Dallas I can think about now that literally has 6 churches, right? All within this a framework. And so what you're saying is, as we are being, I'm not going to say spiritual, as we're being religious, what we are also doing is that we are defunding our own communities.
We are the most effective tool to defunding the police and defunding schools and defunding public safety and defunding public utilities and all of that.
Say that, Doc. I've been educated today. I really had no idea how how police were being funded um
Wow.
outside of the church. I mean, that the church did not pay. I know they don't pay taxes, but I thought there were other ways in which we were being held accountable for what goes on in our community, and usually that's the voice of the pastor. Um, and that voice is also being voided out because I did not realize they don't pay their salaries. So that's huge for me. Thank you for that. Dr. Taylor, you kind of quiet there. I know I beat you up a little bit, but that would be what a wildcat would do to a rattler. So
That'll be what they think they're doing.
so you're allowed to speak. You're allowed. What are your thoughts?
Well, when I got beat up on, Dr. Hill, Attorney Hill came back and showed that I was on point. But the whole thing is that you have agencies.
Redemption.
I was redeemed in Easter week and all other time. But I I think that the church still can be held accountable because we have homes and other things in the community that pay property taxes. And then as we come together as a group, the police have to know that they have to be um, accountable to this group of people. And yeah, I never looked at it that way. I guess because I was just police officer, and for me, I always felt like I was serving the community anyway.
Mm,
And that's just how I did business. But there are some bad seeds out there that they look at things differently. And
mhm.
I mean that would be how I would answer that. But
Yeah, and I think Dr. Van Williams is saying that we got to unbridle the church's voice, simply because, and to bring um, our church members' voices. If we calculated the property taxes that our church members pay on their homes, that ought to speak volumes, because we don't tend to live in $35,000 homes anymore. It's usually 100 times that, at least in my state and city right now. I don't know, uh, where it used to be a house for $150,000, that house now goes for about almost half a million. So the property taxes on $500,000 home ought to be able to speak volumes to the police department, and the church ought to be able to utilize that as an unbridling tool to their lack of paying property taxes for the church itself. That's just my thought.
It's learning and how to be creative. I think we want to mount from the pulpit and fuss with the beating stick, uh,
Mm.
but we have to see how we can correct our own past failures,
Mhm.
because this isn't just a one-time thing. This is year in, year out, that keeps on occurring. And when police officers are overworked because their budget is cut, we have all these other dynamics that come into play that contributes to over policing. Um, Another thing is we were complicit in the 1994 crime bill. When they wanted support, they came to us, and we said yes,
Mhm.
we want our community safe. And as a result, we got the
We
safety, we
do it
got the
right.
militarization of police departments.
Yeah, that's
We
what we
we
got.
we got this over policing in our communities because when they wanted the endorsement, when they wanted to get pushed through, they tapped into our prophetic voices, and so we sold it out without realizing the long term effects of what it might do to our people.
Yeah. Dr. Jeremiah, you're gonna get up off the church, okay? Okay, let me just say you're gonna get up off the church. All right.
That's all I got for the church.
All right.
Tell the truth.
Wait,
I can't. In my class, you were taught to tell the truth.
I feel like a few good men, we can't handle the truth right now. So we're almost at our closing time. I can't believe our time has gone by. But in this, I do want to ask you all, what advice would you give parents for them to give to their children in this time of rising racial tension and especially with policing and law?
For policing, and I think the thing is that even though we still see unarmed black males getting shot, even though we still see them not resisting and getting shot, that's still the advice. Don't resist, obey what the officers say, go home to tell the story, go home to report that to the police and fight the battle in court. And because the thing is that resisting can be anything. If the officer tells you to stop or you're under arrest, if you don't immediately put your hands behind your back, you've resisted. So you need to stop, obey what they're saying, and report it to whoever the adult is so they can report it to make that report and then fight your battle in court. But they just still follow what they're saying. That's what my advice would be. I mean, stay alive. That's the thing.
If I had one nugget, I would share what I try to instill to my sons that as parents say you watch your crowd, because when we talk about charges, there is a such thing as guilt by association. And I think a lot of people don't realize that when you watch it on TV, the lawyer in me cringes when they have someone in a box and they say, well, you didn't do it, but you were there. And they say, yeah, I was there. They've just essentially confessed to the same crime as doing it. I didn't rob the store, I just drove the car. And so you know, be honest and be well advised about who you're hanging with and who you're running with, because if they get caught up doing some dirt, they're gonna take you down, even if you weren't fully involved or fully aware. You may end up going down just like them, and if you're not careful, they're gonna sell you out.
That's right.
And make you take the rap for something that they've done, because they know how to get out of trouble because they're used to getting in trouble. And so
we used to say in the churches, birds of a feather flock together. So we need to understand who we're flocking with and who we are hanging with. I agree with you 100%. Thank you, guys. You all
yeah, you all have been wonderful. I still, even what in your closing statements, I still don't have so many other questions and comments in regard and around that. We have to find a way to get you gentlemen to come back so that we can continue this kind of dialogue and conversation of hearing it from the side of law enforcement and hearing it from the legal side. Because there's so much we don't know. Just as you're saying, write the complaint, right? Doing the complaint. There's so much that we need to hear. And so thank you all for being with us on today. Hang around, please, backstage for us as we share our guest, Dr. Wallace. Who do we have on next week?
Next week, we have none other than Reverend Dr. Cheryl Kirk-Dugan, who teaches us how to write books and offers information about writing and how we need to be authors. So come back next week. She's been with us a couple times already, and you all continue to ask for her to come back. So be with us next week, same time, same station, and we'll figure out what's going on with Facebook.
Thank you all. Thank you all. Love you all. Put it in the chat. They can see with our guest on today. Tell them how much you love and appreciate them. We love you all. And God bless. Lock him up.